if you want to win exciting prizes. This event is supporting Youth Ubals Foundation, so please think about giving something, contributing to this foundation. And thank you to sponsors, Microsoft Amplify, Pantera, Sisto, Tech Platform, and Kawiscom. And thank you to all the organization team, because I know that it's a huge, huge workload to organize such an event. My name is Sébastien Paulet. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I work on document management, SharePoint technology needs for 15 years. And I'm also very interested in cybersecurity on Office 365. And today for this session, what I will try to do is to give you a checklist of actions to implement on the Microsoft 365 tenant when you begin a new Microsoft 365 tenant, or maybe when you are auditing a Microsoft 365 tenant. And instead of trying to give you a list of features or to work by technologies, what I will try to do is to have an approach by kind of attacks, okay? So for this kind of attack, this is a kind of solution you can have, and I will try to give you information about licensing for all those features, all those actions you may have to implement. Okay. At the end, I will also give you a link to my GitHub where I shared a set of scripts that I use very often when I am auditing Microsoft 365 tenant for security. Okay. So to understand Microsoft and security, first thing, I mean, most of the features we will talk about are part of EMS. So when we talk about Office 365, those are the cloud features like Exchange Online, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, and so on. And when we talk about Microsoft 365, it's different from Office 365 because it includes Windows and EMS, and EMS includes Azure Active Directory, Azure IDP Premium, and I will talk often about Azure IDP 1 or Azure IDP 2, which means Azure Active Directory Premium. It includes Azure MFA to enable custom MFA, because you already have an MFA feature in Office 365, a default one. You have Azure Advanced Protection, and so on and so on. And I will go in detail and talk about those one. But instead of giving detail about each one after one, what I will try to do is instead having an approach by kind of attack you may encounter when you have an Office 365 tenant. The first one we'll talk about is fraud to the chairman. We will talk about brute forcing. I will talk about MFA, multi-factor authentication, and I will explain you that if you are quite clever, you can bypass MFA. So it's not because you just enabled MFA that it's secure. It's not enough. We will talk about how to avoid end user data leaks, about avoiding admin data leaks, and we will talk a little bit about endpoint protection, and we will talk also at the end about CryptLocker and ransomware, okay, and the impact on Microsoft 365 tenants. It's quite a big program we have. I won't have time to do a lot of demo, but you will have screenshots and actions how to implement them in slide deck. Okay, and we'll share also the slide deck at the end of the session. So first one, fraud to the chairman and phishing. I don't know what is the situation in India, but in fact we had a lot of this kind of fraud in Europe a few years ago on big companies, and now big companies are prepared. So this kind of pirate and the hackers will try to contact mostly tiny companies because they are not prepared for this kind of attack. The first thing you have to do with this kind of attack, I mean, someone calling the secretary, your assistant, and telling, I'm the big boss of the company and I need you to send me money on this bank account because I'm blocked on whatever country. This is the fraud to the chairman, or you can do it by phone or by email or whatever. First thing you have to do is to sensibilize everybody who have access to the money in your company, and explain them you need to have a clear process and do not answer to any email or phone call and requesting to send money on an unknown bank account. Okay, this is the first thing to do. But on the IT side, what you may have to do, I mean, most of those attacks can be by phone. Okay, so usually by phone, people are prepared about that, and you won't have surprise with that. But if you are an IT, you are in charge of IT, you may want to secure emails. Okay, and what will happen is what can be done is people send spoofing email. Spoofing an email means sending an email like I'm Sebastien.Poli@aero.com, okay? But in fact, I'm not really Sebastien.Poli@aero.com. What you have to understand regarding email is that, in fact, when you receive an email from someone, you see an address as being the sender of the email, but in fact, it's like when you write at the back of your envelope manually something. It's purely declarative. Okay. By default, there is nothing, no check about who is really sending the email. So it's quite easy to spoof emails by default. There are existing mechanisms to protect emails, okay, and to avoid spoofing. Those mechanisms are called SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Okay. SPF is a mechanism which will restrict and enable check that the sender is really from the proper domain. So for instance, if you receive an email from billgates@microsoft.com, SPF, if you implement SPF, it will check that the sender is really someone from Microsoft.com. Okay, and by default, it's already implemented on your Microsoft 365 tenant. If Microsoft 365 is the one which is really managing your domains. Okay, you declare directly the domain in Microsoft 365. So by default, you shouldn't do anything on the SPF side. You may have to do something if you have complex domain rules. Okay, but if it's just one domain and nothing more, it's already implemented. You have nothing else to do. If you want, you have an additional mechanism which is very interesting, which is called DKIM. Okay, and this one is not implemented by default. Okay, it's not such a big deal to implement it. In fact, it's a few PowerShell command lines to run. What you will do is that it will electronically sign the email, and this signature will be sent in the email header. And doing something like that, it means that you can, when you're a recipient of an email, the system can check that the email has not been alterated, has not been modified. Same for DMARC. In fact, it's not implemented by default in Office 365. It's not such a big deal to implement. It's a matter of few PowerShell lines to run, and it will first add additional checks and give instruction when SPF or DKIM fail. Okay. So things to do: implement DKIM and DMARC. Okay, and if you Google it, you will find those PowerShell lines quite easily. It's a matter of half a day to implement if you don't know how to do it. Okay, so to prevent those kind of phishing, it's really important. Implement DKIM and DMARC to protect your email and avoid people trying to spoof your identity. Okay. About emails and spoofing, you have also to understand that when you buy Exchange Online, there is something called Exchange Online Protection, also known as EOP, which is included in Exchange Online. Okay, whatever your licenses. Okay, you always have EOP. If you have Exchange on premise, you can buy EOP as an additional license for Exchange on premise. There is an additional cost for that to insecure your Exchange on premise. But for Exchange Online, it's included. Okay, and how it works: when you receive an email, before when your mailbox receives an email, before you really, as an end user, receive an email, EOP is here. It will receive the email, and it will filter emails based on security rules. It will apply several antivirus. Okay, we don't have the exact name of the antivirus used by Microsoft, but we know that Microsoft is using several antivirus every time you receive an email. Then, if you are an IT admin and if you have implemented policies, those IT policies will be checked. Then you have anti-spam filters, which are applied. And if you have ATP, I will talk about ATP just after. ATP is applied, and then the email is delivered. As you can see, we have several steps which are clearly summed up in this schema that are applied to every email you receive. Okay, so I won't do a full course about EOP. You can spend hours discussing about EOP, but keep in mind that you have all those steps which are applied in this order here before you really receive your email. Okay. And ATP, and in fact, ATP is no recurring, and it's replaced by Microsoft Defender for Identity. What we had before in ATP, and which we have now in Microsoft Defender for Identity, you will have features like SafeLink. SafeLink means that every link you receive in an email is replaced by a safety link. And when you, as an end user, receiving the email, you click on the link, you will be redirected to a page which will interpret the final link, loads the final link page, and ensure that there is no JavaScript or nothing, no virus, anything, no malware in this page. Okay, and if this page is okay, then you are redirected to the page. Okay, so SafeLink is something. I mean, it's really important when you are when you try to avoid phishing to have something like safe links. It has an impact on the end user experience. We'll have additional seconds. It's matter. You will lose like something like 5-10 seconds every time you click on a link. But if you do something like that, you will be sure that when people are clicking on a link inside your company, it's not running to an internet page containing virus or anything like that. Okay. You can also implement anti-phishing protection for risky mailboxes for your president, for your CTO. It's someone very important for your CFO, for instance. You want to really secure those mailboxes, and you don't want someone try to, for instance, instead of Bill Gates, to have someone like Bill Gates at Microsoft.com. Okay, if you want to have such protection, and you have only a limited number of protection of mailbox you can protect, you need Microsoft Identity Defender for Identity. You will have also, if you have such a tool, attachment analysis. So you will have additional analysis, not just antivirus analysis, but when you open the attachment, you will have an additional analysis to check that the attachment is not trying to write in the desktop memory. And also a lot of preset policies available and so on. Okay, but if you want something like that, before you needed ATP, which is now retiring, and you need now Microsoft Defender for Identity, which is part of EMS E5 or Microsoft 365 E5. Okay, so it's quite expensive, this one, but it will add all those features you see right now. Okay, and it's important to avoid phishing. You also, if you use Microsoft 365 Defender, you have an attack simulator training inside. Okay, and if you go on Microsoft 365 Defender attack simulation training simulations, you can launch simulations. Okay, like a phishing campaign inside the company, and it's useful to see how your end user really applying everything you try to explain daily to them. Like, don't click on email you receive if you see something suspicious. Okay, so you have different type of campaign you can directly run on your end users. To have Microsoft Defender, once again, it's part of Office 365 E5 or Microsoft Defender for Office 365 P2 or Microsoft E5 Security or Microsoft E5, of course. Once again, this one is not really something, I mean, it's not as useful as the previous one, but if you want to sensibilize end users, it's really helpful to have something like that to avoid phishing. Okay, so those one are the kind of action to run to avoid phishing inside your company. Next kind of attack are the attack by brute force. Okay, I want to guess or I want to break your password. Okay, there are different ways to break a password. By password spray, so in fact, or by password spray, I will have I have very well-known passwords which are very used, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and I will try to use those passwords on all your Office 365 account. Brute force is different. It's like I really want to brute force this account, and I will try all well-known passwords. Okay, but in fact, what happens is that you have a lot of password databases now available on the dark web. From many websites have been hacked, like LinkedIn, for instance. LinkedIn have been hacked a few years ago, and like people are reusing the same password for their personal account and for business account. You can be sure that using the LinkedIn hack a few years ago, I will retrieve password used in your very company, or because I'm using phishing, or because I installed a keylog on your computer, I can get your password. So you really need to secure your password, and password alone is not really secure anymore. Okay. To give you, this is an example of an Office 365 tenant I audited 1 year ago. And I exported all the logs, the connection logs of this tenant. And I did a Power BI report to show people where the connection attempt on this tenant were coming from. And it was a French company with people in Mauritius. And the blue dots you see are people with successful connection. So I guess it was on COVID period that we had few people in holiday because it was during summer in England and Italia, and maybe people in the US. Okay, I don't explain why we have people in Australia, but as you can see, you have many people from all over the world trying to connect to your tenant. Why? Because you are on the cloud, and as long as you know someone's internet address, you can try to guess the password beyond the email address. Okay, and for this tenant, we were having like it's like a Christmas tree. You see, people from all over the world trying to connect on this tenant, and when you see red dots, it means people without the proper password trying to connect on this tenant from all over the world. This means typically that this tenant was under attack. Okay, so and it's something that can really happen to any tenant. Okay, so if you have only password, someone will by the end achieve to guess one password. I had a question about KQL query. Is it possible to share the KQL query for checking how to see who is connecting to your tenant? If you want to see who is connecting to your tenant, you need to go on Azure AD administration, and you have a detailed information on 7 days. Okay. To probably to get this view. In fact, what you have to do is if you go to Azure AD, you have those 7 days log, and you do an Excel export, as simple as that. and build a Power BI report. Maybe I should share this Power BI report I built, or maybe it's already on my. Maybe I already did it. In fact, let me check. No, it's not already done. So maybe I should share the Power BI file I used, and you can directly. I will add it to GitHub. Okay, after the session. And it's quite simple because you will have real information. Okay, so I mean, just for you, the point here is to show you, I mean, that you can have really a connection from anywhere, from all over the world. Okay, so you really need to securize your passwords. Before, and it's not available anymore, you had a simulation of spray and brute force attack available, but it was requiring Office 365 E5, and it's retired right now, so we don't care anymore about this one. Just handy information. Those are the 10 most famous passwords on the world, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 6. Password as password. It's horrible. Stop using password as password. Okay, or 0000. Okay, so those one by default, in fact, if you are really using Office 365 Azure ID to manage your password, by default, those very famous passwords are blocked. Okay, so your end user are not able to use those passwords. Okay, if you are still running an on-premise Azure ID, this check is not done, and you can implement an additional. You need to have additional component on your on-premise architecture to do those check. Everyone is updating his password on your on-premise Azure ID. Okay, but by default, if you are just running everything on the cloud, this kind of password is blocked. Okay, because it's too famous. Okay. What you have to have in mind is that if someone is trying to connect to your internet account, to your Office 365 account, after 10 attempts, 10 failure, trying to connect to your Office 365 tenant, they will have to wait for 60 seconds. Okay, this is what we call the smart lock. Okay, or and you also have a mechanism on IP smart lock. And you have the AD smart lock and IP smart lock. If you want to customize those settings, you will need Azure IDP 1, so Azure Active Directory Plan 1. If you want to customize such a setting, okay. But if you have so, you can say, okay, I will set up the lockout threshold after just maybe 3 attempts. I won't recommend to have a too low number of attempts because you can easily block a user having something like that. Okay, and to set up something like that, you go on Azure Active Directory Admin Center and Security Password Protection, and you can set it up. Okay. That's all. Regarding connections, what is very interesting, and it's something we have since 1 or 2 years now, you can ask if you see suspicious connections in activity logs, okay, in connection logs, you can directly ask to your users to go on this link, click on the link, and they will see all their connections on the last 7 days, okay? And they will see the IP address, they will see the OS, the browser, and the estimated city, and they will have a map projection of the city. So they can check by themselves if the location of the connection is normal or not. Okay, so if you see something suspicious, send this link to your end user, ask them to check their connection logs, and as they okay with that, it was really them maybe moving for a business trip or maybe moving for holidays, or is it something abnormal? Okay. And of course, if you are in Office 365 security, you heard about MFA. So one of the first things you need to implement, because password is not sufficient, as I explained before, you need to implement MFA. It's really easy to implement. It's just an option to click on the user account. Okay. Really, I mean, if you have just basic license, implement MFA. Even if you have F1 license, you can implement MFA. Okay. Just my recommendation is when you implement MFA, keep one admin account, which is never used. Okay. With MFA disabled. This is what we call a glass breaker. And you just put a very long password. You print this password on a paper sheet, and you keep this sheet on a lockdown in your office. Okay, it can be useful to have such a glass breaker account without MFA. If, and it happens sometimes, the MFA mechanism on Office 365 is down. Okay, if something like that happens, using this glass breaker account, you can connect to the Office 365 tenant and disable the MFA during a short period, few hours, just the time that Microsoft can fix the issue on the MFA mechanism. Okay, so recommendation, keep only one MFA account, glass breaker or two glass breaker account. And every time you use this account, change the password after and keep a very long password for this one. Okay, so I mean, if you have only one thing to do on Office 365 account, because it's not implemented by default, it's not activated by default, please activate MFA on at least IT accounts, admin accounts, and my recommendation is really to activate MFA on all accounts. Okay, if you want to have something more complex, like I want people to have MFA only if they are not in the office building, or only if they are not connected in India. France, I want to have MFA only if they are trying to connect from a foreign country, or I want to have MFA only if they are using something which is not a computer attached to my Active Directory, to my domain. You need conditional access, and conditional access is part of Azure ID P1. Okay. Also important to do, it's not done yet. Microsoft will disable basic authentication protocols. What we call basic authentication protocol is IMAP, SMTP, POP3, all those old school authentication protocols. Those protocols are not using MFA. Okay, so if I'm a pirate, okay, and I try to spray, to do a brute force or a spray force attack on your tenant, what I will try is not to connect directly on the using the web browser. I will try instead to use POP3 and IMAP, because those old school protocols are not using MFA. Okay. So even if you implement MFA, you will still have this big backdoor here. And what you have to do, I mean, Microsoft was supposed to do it 1 year ago, but because of COVID, they delayed the action, and they announced they will do it second half of 2021. So it should happen soon. But if you are an IT admin and it's not done yet, please disable all those old school protocols. It's something you can easily do using the end user interface, but it's quite a long thing because you need to do it end user by end user, or you can do it using PowerShell. Don't do it like a big brute, because sometimes your end user are still using IMAP for a specific application or something like that. So check before and do it for a specific set of users. And if nobody is complaining about, okay, this application is not working anymore because you disabled all legacy protocols, then you can disable it for all end users and so on. Or maybe you need to disable it all legacy protocols for all end users, but not all, because this, I mean, for instance, the HR department is using this application, which is still based on POP3. So maybe you will disable IMAP for everyone and keep POP and disable POP3 for everybody except HR people. Okay, so it may be a complex one to implement this one, but do it. Okay, and be careful because Microsoft will do it by default in few months. We don't know yet exactly, but it will happen. Okay. Automatic email forward. If a pirate achieves to pirate one mailbox, the first thing the pirate will do, in fact, and this is by experience, they will try to set up an automatic forward to a prank email address they have. Doing so, even after they leave the company, they will continue to receive all the email from the end user. Okay, so if you don't really need it, and I don't know a company really needing external forward, you should disable. Okay, automatic forward. And to disable automatic forward, it's just a matter of few PowerShell commands, and this is the PowerShell commands you should run to do it. Okay. Now, let's imagine you implemented your MFA inside your company and you disabled legacy protocol, so you're good, and you think that your security is very strong. In fact, it's not that strong. Okay. If you see, this is Jack Dorsey, this is the CEO of Twitter, and 2 years ago, this poor guy has been hacked because he was thinking that his MFA was sufficiently secure. And his MFA was just based on SWIM, on mobile phone, on text messaging on mobile phone. You know, when you receive a code every time someone is trying to connect to your account. And they use a technique which is very poor, but which someone work is like to call your mobile operator and say, okay, I lost my SIM, and can you reaffect my phone number to this new SIM? And they just try to do it by phone, and it worked because the mobile operator was not really secure. And because of that, they just bypass the MFA. Okay, so I mean, having just MFA is not, I mean, it's not 100% secure. It's really 99% secure in comparison of just having password, but it's not doing all security, okay? And even if you say, okay, I will force my end users to have Authenticator, this application you have on your mobile phone, I mean, and you think that it's more secure, let me introduce you to EvilJinx. And EvilJinx is just an application that if you implement a phishing, and if the end user click on the link, and they will have a page which is very similar, which is the exact copy of your connection page on Office 365. And if the end user is not really reading the email address on the top, they will try to connect and they will archive. If the pirate is using EvilJinx, they will archive to get the password, and they will also receive the security cookie. Okay. So let me show you how it works. As an end user, you see this is the experience of the user. They are typing the code, and this is on the left what the pirate will see. Okay, they try to log in. This is not the real Office 365 page, but it really looks like. In fact, it's a man in the middle attack. Okay, they will receive all the information, and they will just copy the HTML flow to the end user. So whatever the authentication method you have, using a phishing attack, so the end user try to connect to Office 365, you think it's an Office 365 page, and in fact they will type everything, and they will also type all the security codes they receive by email, or they will go in Authenticator on their mobile phone and say, yes, I'm really trying to connect to this page. And in fact, it's not a real Office 365 page. And the pirate you see here will receive everything, including the password and the security cookie. And with an attack like this one, it means that the pirate is able to connect on the account. Okay, so with a phishing and a man in the middle attack, you can get your end user password. Okay, you may have heard that Microsoft is now proposing passwordless with authenticator. It's good, okay, but it don't protect against man-in-the-middle attack like the one with AVJinx. Okay, so it's not sufficient. If you want to really be secured against man-in-the-middle attack, the only technology I tested which is really working is FIDO keys. Okay, and you have several providers of FIDO keys. And with FIDO, I mean, the authenticate, those keys are checking that the URL you are trying to connect are the real one you're supposed to connect to. Okay, so MFA plus FIDO keys, yes, this one is really secure. Okay, before, I mean, implement MFA, but don't think it's because you have MFA that you are 100% secure. Okay, with FIDO key, I don't know how to hack an account protect by MFA and the FIDO key. Personally, I don't know how to do it. Okay. And next kind of thing that may happen, the end user data leak. And it's something that you should be, if you are a CTO, you shouldn't sleep well thinking about end user data leak. Your end user may want to really leak your data, rob your data. You may have a pirate connecting to your end user account, which will try to rob your data. And sometimes it's just the end user that mistype the email address. It's just a mistake they did. And I mean, they will leak data just by error. Okay, so whatever you do, end user will do mistakes. So you should think about protecting your information. You may have heard about the zero trust model and so on, and something like that. So what to do for that? You had a presentation from Pratik Gimonet 2 hours ago. He was talking about sensitivity labels. Okay, and sensitivity labels is clearly a good thing to implement. As soon as you have at least E3, Office 365 E3 program, you can implement sensitivity labels. Or if you have a Microsoft 365 Business Premium, you can implement sensitivity labels. Having sensitivity labels, you will apply those labels on your documents, and you will do it only for really sensitive documents, like top secret or confidential documents. Okay. Doing so, someone was asking to zoom on the screen. Don't worry about that. You will have all slides after. I will share the slide deck after. Okay. Sensitivity labels, going back to sensitivity labels, what it does, in fact, when you apply such a label to the document, and I will do a quick demonstration after, the document will be directly encrypted. Okay, so if someone steals this document, if someone steals this PDF or steals this docx, even if I go out of the organization, I cannot open this document, and it's really protected. Okay, and you can also implement restriction, like you can disable copy paste, disable printing, disable screenshot, and so on and so on. So you will apply those labels to really sensitive content. Okay, and the only thing someone having access and able to open the document will be able to do is to just take a picture with a mobile phone of the document. Okay, there is nothing you can do about someone taking a picture with a mobile phone of the screen. Okay, but you can disable everything you need using sensitivity labels, everything else than just taking pictures. Okay. If you want to implement sensitivity labels, you need at least Office 365 E3. And if you want to have automatic apply, like you can, this is something Patrick talked about. If you want to do detection based on credit card number detection or passport number or ID card number, or if you want to do detection and automatically apply such a label every time a document contains confidential word or a project name word or whatever. If you want to do something like that, you need Office 365 E5 license to do automatic apply. If you don't have E5 and you just have E3, it's a manual apply. You will be able to do. Okay. And if you want sensitive content, you want to block the end user to be able to drag and drop such a document on a USB key, or to drag and drop such a document in Gmail, for instance, you will have to have both Intune and Windows Information Protection, which are part of Microsoft 365 E3 or EMF E3. Okay. Quick demonstration about what sensitivity labels look like. Quick demonstration. You go on your file, and because you created labels, you have this additional menu, sensitivity menu. And you click here, and you will see all labels, all available labels. And for each label, you can have a setup, specific setup that you will do on your Office 365 tenant. And doing so, after then, you can open your file in Word Online or the real Word application like this one. And you will see that you will have an indication that the label has been applied here. See, this is my label name with encryption, and I can see the detail of the encryption. Creating such a label is an easy operation. You need to go to the compliance center in your IT admin compliance center, and it's something like you see. If I won't go in detail, but it takes something like 5 minutes to set up and 25 hours to deploy. Okay. Just you can see that you can, by security group, determine who is able to do what on a labeled document. Okay. That's it for sensitivity labels. Just if you want to know more about sensitivity labels, you have this page here, which is really helpful, which explains in detail how it works. Okay, this is an RSA encryption with a 2 kilo key using SHA-1 256 for signature. Keep in mind, if you are working for a government organization or something very, very, very secure, and you don't want even Microsoft to be able to decrypt your document, because by default, when you are using sensitivity labels, you have to have in mind that it's Microsoft which is managing keys. Okay, so it means that Microsoft is able to decrypt your document. In fact, they are decrypting the document when they are using the search engine, when they are using antivirus, and so on and so on. So if you are having very, very, very secure content, and you don't want even Microsoft to be able to decrypt such a document, you need to enable DKE, and DKE you need Office 365 E5 or Office 365 E5 compliance or information protection and governance license. Okay, and if you use DKE, you need to implement a system to manage your keys, or you have a third-party provider for keys that have system for that. And if you have such a system, in fact, you have double keys. One key is managed by Microsoft, and the other key is managed by the third-party system, which means that Microsoft is totally unable to decrypt your document. Okay, so we have, a very, very, very strong mechanism to secure your document. I won't talk about CaseB, I don't have time to do so. Okay, to prevent data leaks, what else can we do? We are always talking about end users who are leaking data, but think about your administrators. This guy, and you probably know this guy, is Edward Snowden. He was a SharePoint administrator, and he used, in fact, SharePoint to leak the data. The data was a little bit everywhere on the FBI servers, but he used the SharePoint database to just collect and get everything. Read his book, it's really interesting to read, Edward Snowden book. To avoid issues with your administrator, please implement the principle of least privilege. Okay. And implementing something like that on Office 365 means you should have at least as possible the lowest number of admin accounts as possible. Okay, so give admin permission to really as few people as possible. You should have 2 to 4 global admins, nothing more than that. Okay, and use dedicated admin accounts. Okay, you shouldn't have like Sébastien Paulet, for instance, having direct admin permissions. Even if I'm the owner of the company, I should have a second account, which is Sébastien Paulet -ADM or whatever. Okay, or IDM Sébastien Paulet, whatever. But nominative accounts, okay. But nominative accounts, dedicated accounts, okay. And you should have very few people with global admins, okay? Keep 1 or 2 icebreaker accounts. I explained the icebreaker accounts without MFA, okay? And your administrator should have dedicated machines when they are using their admin accounts, okay? And of course, MFA is mandatory for admins, okay? And use delegation of right on your administrators. Meaning that if someone is only doing administration on Excel, I don't give him global admin permissions. I will give him only admin permission on Excel Online. Okay, so really do a management of permission on your admin accounts. Don't give, I mean, every time I do an audit, I found something like 20 accounts having admin permissions. It shouldn't exist. Okay, so I remove admin permissions. Okay, and keep those rules. Those are basic rules on admin permissions. Next, we have also to implement security on all terminals. We all have mobile phones now. We have laptops and so on and so on. So what can we do to implement security? First thing to do, please BitLock all your hard drives. A real hacker can enter on any laptop if it's not BitLocked. Okay, I won't do a demo for that, but it takes something like 5 minutes to enter in a laptop which is not BitLocked, even if the hacker doesn't have the end user password. Okay, and your end user are always storing data directly on the laptop. So BitLock every laptop. If it's BitLocked, personally, I don't know any way to force to enter on a laptop if I don't know the end user password. Okay, so firstly, BitLock all laptop. Okay, and second, implement mobile device management, mobile application management solutions on your on every mobile, every laptop, every desktop, everything. Okay, to do something like that, you can use third-party systems, or you can use Microsoft systems. Okay, by default, you have SCCM, which is the old school device management system we have for Windows. Okay, know that you have an NDM for Office 365, which is included in Office 365. It's enough to manage iOS, Android, and Windows devices. It's not sufficient to implement for macOS devices. Okay, and you will it will be enough to have security policies like password requirements and so on to force a user to have fingerprints on their mobile phone or anything like that. And you can implement remote wipe. If you want something stronger, and if you want to implement MAM, okay, mobile application management, you need Microsoft Intune. And if you need Microsoft Intune, you need EMS-A3 or Microsoft 365 Business Premium license. Okay. How to do a remote wipe? Go on devicemanagement.microsoft.com, you select your device, and you click on retire. And next time the device will be connected to internet, everything will be wiped. Okay, everything will be erased. So very helpful if someone is losing his mobile or just the mobile is stolen or anything like that. Okay, about CryptoLocker and ransomware.
Sebastian, we have 7 more minutes.
Okay, this is my last chapter. Two more two more things to say, and I will close the session. First thing to do about ransomware and so on, and crypto lockers. Please, if you still have an active, non-premise Active Directory, please secure your Active Directory. Most of the security breach are on the Active Directory itself. So do an audit on your Active Directory. This is the first thing to do to avoid crypto locker spreading all over the company. This being said, and even if you are using on-premise ID or not on-premise ID, good news for you. I mean, if you have a crypto locker, which is locking all files on your desktop, if your files are stored in SharePoint or Teams or OneDrive, and if something like that happens, you just have to send an email to your end user telling them that they can go. This one is the menu for SharePoint, but you have something like that for OneDrive. You go on the engine wheel here on the top right corner, click on Restore this library or Restore OneDrive, and you will go on such a screen where you can, the end user alone can restore the previous state of the document library or the OneDrive or the Teams a few days ago. You can go up to 30 days before. Okay, and so if something happens, just say to your end user, please restore. I mean, first thing, change your computer because it's infected. Okay, go on a new computer and just restore your document library a few days ago, and it will be okay. And second thing you need to do as an IT admin, you go on iTunes if you have iTunes, and you block the unsafe device, and you may also create policies. I mean, it's really something you need to manage on iTunes. Intune, not iTunes, Intune. Okay, think Intune, it's part of EMF3. Okay, and if you're an IT admin on a very small company and you have no time to implement everything like that, you can go on Azure AD Admin, Active Azure AD Premium Directory, Properties, and you have this tiny link here, Manage Security Default, and you can enable Security Default. If you do something like that, it's really a brutal action. And so don't do it for a big company, but if you are a tiny company using Office 365 with no legacy application and nothing like that, do something like that. Not big deal. And if you click here and you click yes here, it will enable MFA for all end users. It will deactivate all legacy protocol. It will require MFA for all action with privilege. And in fact, when you enable this feature here, it will implement what Microsoft planned to implement by default in the next 5 years. Okay. Don't do it if you're having a big company with legacy application and so on and so on. But if you begin a new tenant and you want to say, okay, I want a new tenant with web security, don't think too much and just go there and say, click yes. Okay, it's a good test. For a tiny company, it's sufficient. Okay. And that's all. And this is the famous session code. Okay, session code is 31412. And next session is with Minrod, but by then we still have 3 minutes. So if you have questions, please feel free. And
thank you, Sebastian. Yeah, guys, I have posted the URL, the feedback URL in the chat window, and you can see the sessions code from the screen. Please feel free to ask questions. We still have 3 more minutes.
Yes. I shared in the discussion panel the slide deck. Okay, you have the link to the slide deck, and also a link to my GitHub. Microsoft 365 tenant. Okay. Those are scripts to export all information about mailboxes, about labels, about password policies, and so on when you do an audit. And if you want to apply rules or details on the slide deck, you can use those scripts. No question? It was that clear? Good. Good news.
Yeah, more. There are new things. Several things that are new to many of us.
Okay.
So it is going to be a good learning for me. The beauty with Office 365 is that there are many controls which are turned off by default. We will get good security only when we turn it on. So
Yes.
you have nicely shown all the settings where we need to enable those things. It's going to be really an eye opener for many.
Yep. I mean, and this is, I tried to sum it up in 50 minutes. It's quite a tough exercise. But yes, I mean, and with that, I mean, you can consider having a good security. People are thinking that because they go on Microsoft is the biggest cloud operator for companies, so it's secure, it's okay. No. If you're not implementing MFA or anything like that, you will have issues, okay?
And even guys, if you have any questions, you can follow him on his social media accounts like LinkedIn or Twitter, and you can ready to ask the questions whichever you come across regarding this session also.
I will share the link to on LinkedIn.
It will
to
be
my
good.
LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, that will be good.
And I mean, feel free. I will be happy to add you as connection.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sebastian. Thanks for the wonderful session. Nice to have you for this very first edition of India Cloud Security Summit. See you soon next year also.
Yeah, thank you very much, Naresa-ma, and good luck for the continuation of the event. Thank you again for organizing everything. And I mean, you will have a great session after with Nimrod, talking about enhancing your Microsoft 365 form without compromising privacy and security. So have a great session, everyone. Okay. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.